The problem with the tax bill is the lost opportunity. I mean, I submitted 2 bills to the president in person. One was the Patriot Corporation Act, which simply says if you pay your workers well and you provide good benefits, health and retirement, and you produce in the United States, you get a lower tax rate. The other was the Working Families Tax Relief Act, which focuses tax cuts on middle-class taxpayers. Congress, the lobbyists went to work in Mitch McConnell, Leader McConnell's office, the Republican leader, and the Speaker's office, and we got a bill where more than 3/4 of the benefits of the tax bill go to the richest 1%. And corporations are making more and more money. Executives their compensation's exploding, and wages have been flat. I like that the economy's growing. I like that the stock market's going well, but wages, workers aren't keeping up. And then the biggest problem with the tax cut is after the bill passed, Republican leadership said now to pay for this budget-busting tax bill, a huge increase in the federal deficit, to pay for it, we're going to have to cut Social Security and raise the retirement age, eligibility age for Medicare. And you don't give tax cuts to the rich and then go after the middle class to pay for it. That's wrong. Well, I take a backseat to nobody in wanting strong border security. That means helicopters, trained agents, using technology like my bill that the president, I was in the Oval Office when the president signed our Interdict Act with Senator Portman. And that bill gives our border agents technology to detect fentanyl and carfentanil coming into the country. We need to do more than that, but that's one of the things we do at the border. But you can't deport 13 million people. You do a path to citizenship where they earn it. They pay taxes. They pay penalties when necessary, when it's the right thing to do, and they have a path to citizenship. But the thing you don't do, and no Republicans aren't speaking out on this and aren't pushing the president, is you don't take small children and rip them away from their families. And I mean, some of these children are so. And I have grandkids this age, so I became aware of this. Some of these kids don't even know their parents' names. I mean, if you're a 2 or 3 or 4-year-old little boy or girl, you literally probably don't know your parents' names, and they're separated, and there's just not the effort to put them back together, and the damage it's doing for these kids for no real good policy reason. While the president always brags about the economy doing so well, the stock market's up. There's economic growth, but the growth has not gone to working families. It's not gone to the middle class. The wages, compensations exploded for top executives. Profits are up. Stock market's up. Productivity's up for the workers. They're working harder and getting less, and wages have been flat. One of the things you do is our Working Families Tax Relief Act. You give tax relief to the middle class, and you grow the economy from the middle class, not from middle class out, not from the top down, this trickle down. That history proves that. Republicans still want to believe it's trickle down because that's what they want to believe. But we need to enforce the overtime rule. The minimum wage hasn't been increased in 12 years. My opponent called the federal minimum wage ridiculous, and I think that's a ridiculous thing to say. I mean, the minimum wage, when you raise the minimum wage, all low-income, moderate-income workers' wages go up with it. You hear the attacks on the minimum wage that it caused job loss or prices to go up. You never hear that when executives get million-dollar bonuses, that causes prices to go up. They only want to say it about people making $8, $9, $10, $12 an hour, and that's just wrong. The incentives, unfortunately, we have seen in this country in the last 25 years, long before President Trump, but and there's finger pointing all the way around, doesn't really matter, but we've seen the business plan for far too many companies as you shut down production in Mansfield or Bucyrus or Springfield or Zanesville, and you move overseas and build a plant and you collect a tax break. And as long as that keeps happening, it keeps depressing wages, it costs us jobs, and for those left behind in their manufacturing jobs, it depresses wages. And until we have a trade and tax policy that works for middle-class Americans and middle-class Ohioans, we'll continue to have that. So it means eliminating those incentives to go overseas. You shouldn't get a tax deduction. The new tax bill that just passed a year ago fundamentally gives a 50% off coupon on your taxes if you move overseas. If GM produces in Lordstown, Ohio, they pay a 21% tax rate. If they move to Mexico, they pay 10.5%. So then fundamentally they get a 50% off coupon on their taxes, and that only means more companies are going to move overseas, and wages will be further flattened or depressed for manufacturing workers up and down the supply chain in the industrial Midwest. Well, you start with not rating the schools for-profit online charter schools. I mean, Ohio is called around the country the wild, wild west of for-profit charter schools, and you've seen this circular kind of the state government, the corrupt state government run by Republicans for most of the last 25 years, takes money out of the public schools, puts it in the pocket of for-profit charter schools. Online, especially for-profit charter schools, those Republican politicians, those companies then give contributions to Republican politicians, and you end up betraying the students who are not getting the quality of education and fleecing taxpayers. You start with taking that out. Then the legislature and Congress need to get out of their minds that their goal every year should be more tax cuts for the richest people in the country, and start investing in infrastructure in schools. We know what state government has done to our cities and counties and small towns and big cities alike, taking money out, sending it to Columbus, and cutting taxes for the rich. It's been this, and it's undermined our public schools. It undermines police and fire protection. And look at the condition of our streets and highways and bridges and water and sewer systems all over the state. State government, start with state government investing the way it used to in big state universities, Kent, Cleveland State, UC, Bowling Green, Ohio State, everywhere. Start with that. But also what the federal government role should be is we need to invest in Pell Grants and Perkins and more of those programs to help middle-class kids go to college if they want. But those same loans should be available for trade schools if someone wants to be a diesel mechanic, or should be at community college if somebody wants to go to Lorraine Community College or Tri-C or Cincinnati or Columbus State. We also need to, Congress needs to move to reduce the interest rates in these private bank loan, these private loans for college students. We had a bill we tried to get through Congress that my opponent voted against and unfortunately was defeated, where 25 million students across the country, 1 million students in Ohio at least, would have gotten significant savings in their loan payments because we would have reduced the usurious interest rates that banks are charging. Yeah, I mean, you see the problem. It's not just so far too many children, for young men and women, have an average in the state of like $35,000. If they have debt, it's about the average, $35,000. I met a young man in a pharmacy in Youngstown who has $200,000 in debt because he went to 6-year pharmacy school, and it was a private school, and it's crushing. And pharmacists make pretty good money, but to have that kind of debt, we focus first on interest rates. That private banks are charging much too high interest rates. These should be that we should do more federal direct loans. So some people do in fact get a lower interest rate because they applied for the federal direct loan payments or program. That's part of it. Another part is loan forgiveness, that people that become police officers or teachers or firefighters or nurses or in some of the public sector jobs that might make a little less money, but that they get loan forgiveness as a result. So we have that in place, and the Trump administration has begun to dismantle the loan forgiveness program for public servants. I mean, this is as partisan an issue as there is. Republicans in the House, my opponent included, have voted more than 20 times to repeal the Affordable Care Act. That takes away, I'm a Democrat, Governor Kasich's a Republican, it wipes away the Medicaid expansion. Right now, 200,000 Ohioans are getting opioid treatment because of the Affordable Care Act. First, do no harm. Don't take that away from people. But the other part is those 24 times they voted to repeal the Affordable Care Act says to insurance companies, yeah, you can deny coverage to somebody that has a pre-existing condition. And right now, more than half the adults in Ohio have a pre-existing condition. It could be cancer or Parkinson's or diabetes or a whole host of illnesses, obviously, chronic illnesses especially. And they could be denied coverage if those in Congress have their way to eliminate the consumer protections to combat pre-existing condition. That will cause a lot of people hardship, and it will also cause prices to go up because people won't be able to get any kind of decent insurance then.